Welcome to a video from digitallifestyle.com. This is a new sound collection for the Korg Multi native and multi rack. This is the inspired by CS-80 collection. So this is 50 performances and 53 programs, all inspired by the legendary Yamaha CS-80 polysynth from the late 70s. Used by Vangelis, Tony Banks out of Genesis, Michael Jackson and others, and Toto. It's just a brilliant polysynth sound, and these sounds were inspired by that sort of large polysynth sounds. So some of them are recreations of the actual presets from the front panel, which actually, compared to the others, are actually pretty tame, and some of them are just inspired by the architecture of the CS-80. So I've gone for some big sounds, some warm sounds, that kind of thing, and we've got some sequences on there. So available from the digitallifestyle.com, from the store. It's a premium pack with everything thrown in, and then there's a sort of taster pack as well. That's a free pack as well. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate some of the sounds, and I'll explain some of the methodologies behind the programming of that. So even if you're not looking to buy the sounds, you should get something from this video, because I'm going to explain how I've done those. So some of them big, some of them small, and some of them use dual filters, some of them use the Kaos, and so the first one I've got here is actually one that uses the dual filters, and the architecture on the CS-80, you can kind of your oscillators go through a high pass filter and then to the rest of the synth, the filter sections. So I've used that on quite a few of these. So I've used the high pass in serial with the low pass. 4 oscillators, nice slow envelope to build up the sort of big pad sounds. 3 octaves apart between them as well to really give you that low section. Another little technique I've used on here as well is using the Kaos to kind of emulate the ribbon controller on the CS-80. It's not the same, but I was kind of inspired by that. So the CS-80 ribbon, I think I've only played with the emulators, not a real one. When you press the ribbon, it doesn't change pitch until you slide away. It's sort of doing the differential. I couldn't figure out a way of doing that using the Kaos pad, but I did want to use the Kaos pad as a sort of ribbon connector, so you can go. So it takes you basically, you can so if you've got a nice big sound like that, you kind of have to get used to going to the center point on it, but it works quite nicely, and it's a nice sort of extra way other than the pitch to use the pitch changes. Some of the patches use 2 octaves, some of them use a single octave on that control as well. Also, most of these sounds all support poly aftertouch. Don't think I've got it on this particular patch. I yes, I have. Yeah, you can see the tuning being altered by the poly aftertouch. So I've got a key stage over here, and I'll demonstrate it when you on some of the sounds. Things like filters can change through poly aftertouch. So this one, I had to do this one. I'm pretty sure it was a CS-80. Could have been a DX1, but I liked it. I love this sort of maybe an octave lower. It's a nice sort of classic synth, polysynth, soft, nice, soft brass sound. Again, this uses supports the ribbon. I've got one very simple one here, actually. Sometimes you just want a simple bass, and that's a nice 2 octave simple bass. Again, supports the ribbon. And then I've also put that in one with the sequence as well. And then you've got the filter on a long LFO to bring that in and out. Okay, Another thing you might do if you had a late 70s polysynth is try and emulate a piano, because people only want to carry one synth, it would carry piano as well. So this is the analog piano sound of those sort of 70s synths. I think they've got a really nice sort of charm sound in their own right. They don't really sound like pianos, but they've got that really nice, a bit Vangelis. I think Vangelis would probably use that kind of sound on there as well. So just using the pulse width and high and a low pass filter and a bit of high pass filter on that as well. Some bass pedals. So creating sort of those low bass pedals by using the triangle waves as sub oscillators to give you that real deep sort of sub oscillator on there. Great that when you layer it with other sounds as well, which I've done later in this demo. So that's a kind of Tony Banks behind the line type sounds. Tony Banks uses CS-80 on Duke, and it gives you that big, nice, bright brass sound. There's a second oscillator which adds to the detune, which you can turn down. So if you have that turned down, you can hear it a little bit of phasing. Add that second oscillator, you get a bit more phasing. CS-80, definitely think Vangelis and Blade Runner. So it's a nice Blade Runner lead sound. And you can hear that poly aftertouch on there. So not only is the poly aftertouch being controlled by controlling the pitch, it also affects the filter as well. But with the poly aftertouch, you can sort of play two notes and just have that pitch open, that pitch modulation, and the filter open on that single note as well. To have some fun with the ribbon control there. So I took that sound, laid that with another sound, created a little sequence, and you get the Blade Runner end track. There you've got that sort of Blade Runner sequence. And that's on one of the layers. There we go, at the end up as well. So you can import that layer in and you can listen to that on its own. A nice little sequence for it. So here's an interesting one. Using the dual filters, the high pass, low pass, I've created a phased string sound. No filter, no phaser used on this, just using the high pass, low pass to get that sort of filter effect. Which is a real nice effect using two filters. This one is based on one of the presets, it's Brass 1. And it sounds pretty basic. That's because when you listen to it on the CS-80, without any effects, especially, those presets are pretty basic. It's only when you start adding all the modulation capabilities that the sounds really excel and the synth excels. So it's a nice one to have in there. Chariots brass. Another Vangelis one. Which is the Chariots of Fire type sound from the CS-80. So you've got a lot of modulation on the oscillators there to give you that effect. Choir. So you can build a choir sound on an analog synth, kind of using those filters and some pitch modulation. Obviously, it doesn't sound like a choir in days of analog synths. That was the type of effect you get, and you can see why digital synths with samples like the M1, why choirs suddenly sounded amazing back then, because you went from that sort of synthetic sound to those big sounds. But I think it's a really nice sound. So these are a few custom type ones where I've just took the architecture, the low pass filter, the LFOs, and combined them to create some interesting sounds. This one's actually quite a simple one. Nice slow envelope to get that effect. But I'm using the ring mod, which was on the CS-80, which is lots has been inspired by that ring mod on there to create that sort of sound. So this is sounds like quite a complex sequence. I'm using the motion sequence to do this. There isn't multiple layers on this to get this effect. That's a single layer. But I'm using ring modulation, cross modulation, motion sequencing to bring in those different harmonics and things to create what sounds like a complex layer. Again, there's no phaser or a chorus on that. That's all just using the filters. So that's a nice technique of using the LFOs, two LFOs to control each other. So one LFO to control the rate and the other LFO controlling the rate of the LFO. So this is a good example of two LFOs. So one LFO is controlling the low pass filter. And the other LFO is controlling the rate of the first LFO. So that's how you can get that sort of effect. So we've got a dual choir. So I like the choir sound before, and I thought, well, maybe I could layer it, double that up if you had two CS-80s. So it kind of sounds fairly simple, doesn't it? But it's actually using 8 oscillators to get that effect. Dual filter sweep. So we're using 2 filters, so let's sweep through them. put a big part of reverb on there, but it's just kind of create this big filter sweep. And it's the high pass that you can hear sweeping there. And with the Poly Aftertouch, you can control the pitch modulation. So this one, Find My Way Home, is the recreation of the John and Vangelis track, or the sound, the CS-80 sound off that. It's actually a nice lead, sort of plucked lead sound. And that's using, I actually used the digital oscillator this one because I wanted to get the ring modulation exactly how I did it when I did the mod wave, and I used the digital oscillator on the mod wave. So that's what gets the sort of nice ring sound using the ring mod. You could have used the sawtooth, but I just got these right with these positions before, and I wanted to get them exactly right. So we're using a sawtooth and a kind of PWM type waveform. In fact, we can even see them. They've got the sine wave and the square wave through the ring modulation. Gives you that nice effect. So this one is, I want to play around with the sequencer really on this one, give you a good example of a sequencer I want. So this sequence, using the architecture of the CS-80, the low pass, high pass, but I've wanted to create sort of a longish sequence on it. So what I actually did, it was created a 32 note sequence, and then it plays backwards and forwards. So you hear that pitch, see that pitch going backwards and forwards. So it actually creates you effectively as that 64 note sequence. Every now and you'll hear a bit of ratcheting. Only every now and again, because the probability is low. If I turn it up, there you go. If you want to know how to do ratcheting, try to do dream style, then check out my other videos on that, because I've got some 5-minute tutorials and longer videos on doing ratcheting. But anyway, so that's what I want to create. So I give it a nice synth lead sound and a bit of analog kick as well. So this is another one playing with the filters. And it's especially on the release. This one, nice, simple synth sound. With it, the longer you play it, the more it goes out of tune. Or the oscillators beat with each other because as they go, separate apart on the tuning. That was using a detuned saw, and then just expand that detune. So that's the Vangelis sort of lead sound on I Hear You Now. Not dissimilar to the Vangelis lead sound that I did earlier on. This one is using there's no ring modulation on this one, unlike the other sound. Using sawtooth and pulse width to get that effect. It's a great song, and I love that little sequence. It's quite a nice simple sequence. but I do like that. So that's laid on there as well. So here we've got a single layer sound, but it sounds nice and big. Probably have to touch on that as well. So I made a string machine, and how you would make it on a CS-80, laid it up as well. So we've got so here you can hear the lower layer combined with the high pass. So when we look at so you've got a low strings there, and here you've got the high pass with and the low pass filter, but the high pass taking out a lot. That to give you that nice thin sound. I really like that sort of thin effect you get with the high pass on there. There's the low string on its own. Magic pad. Again, using a single layer for this one. Detuned saws, detuned a bit, octave separated, really gives you that wide ranging sound. That's why you can hear the sort of bass down there, is because we've got one an octave below, one on the current octave. In fact, we've got one 2 octaves down, one octave down, the center octave, and 1 octave up. So really spanning that all the way across to give that a nice big sound. And of course that works with ribbon and poly Aftertouch. So here's a sound effect, kind of thinking sort of Blade Runner thing, you know, in the apartment building, the rain's coming down, and it sort of gives you that sort of atmospheric water drops. But obviously it's like a synth sound, so it's kind of that's a synthetic rain. It kind of fits in with that feel. Kind of simple pluck sound. So here's another sort of high pass type one. There's only a little bit of high pass filter on there, but it's the pulse width that's really giving that sort of thinner sound. So here's a similar one, lots of pulse width and lots of high pass really to give it that really nasally sound and that high sound. And it's quite good in the mix, that one, because it just takes up the sort of the higher part. I put some ring mod in it. I do like a bit ring mod and some ring modulation bells. I put a good lead sound in there. This is a monophonic PWM lead. If you play it from a poly Aftertouch keyboard, you can get a nice pitch modulation on modulation, which you can do through the pitch wheels though. This one's called Soundtrack because there's quite a few synths have soundtrack sounds, and they always have got that. They're always transposed slightly to give you that effect. So that's what I've done here. But that extra sawtooth, the transposed sawtooth, comes in a little later with a slower envelope. I've played it with the panning as well on that one. This one's called Stairs. And here's that water effect that I created earlier on with a nice sequence. And you can turn the sequence down using the mod control. String 1, the basic string patch from the CS-80. Yeah, it sounds a bit strange, but honestly I did try and get it as close to as I could of the original. And it's using a lot of high pass filter on that one. A nice string machine there. No splits or anything, they're just single layer. So I emulated the CS-80 emulating a string machine, so it's not quite a Selena, but that's how if you were doing it on the CS-80. Actually, it does sound pretty close to something like a Selena, but it's got its own sound. Some nice simple strings. Now here's an example of the poly Aftertouch opening the filter. This actually adds to resonance. Synth bass. So a nice synth bass. Synth bells, not using ring mod on this one, cross mod. I had to include some sort of noisy sound effects. So you can hear the low pass filter is using that dual LFO effect, while the high pass filter is on the same pace. So this one, Tony Banks like to use sort of phase sounds a lot of his synths. So this is a sort of big Tony Banks type pad with orange phaser too. Maybe something like. The phase is a kind of narrow stereo field, but it's a nice effect on that. And then I've done the same one, but I've split it with a sort of a synth bass. So you can use that the bass pedals sort of like in your left hand. I also use a template, so here's the template that I built for the CS-80. So that's where I've got the high pass, low pass filter set up in serial. I switched off the second filter in the template, but it's got the ribbon built into it and the poly aftertouch as well. So ready for me to then build the next sound. So that's included in here. Here's one of the sequences I had earlier, but sort of combined to make with us a nice pad sound. Here that pad comes in and out. Nice thinnish pulse width type sound. With that slow envelope on there. Touch stabs. So this is one of the sort of velocity on it. But not only it's the velocity, it's the way you do the release envelope on the filter. So if you play it and keep the envelope, keep the notes down, you get like that. But if you play it really short sort of stab, so you can. So it gives you that kind of effect. Triangle pad using triangle waves. So a nice simple triangle wave type sound. and a Unison lead. Got a nice Unison type sound. Not necessarily CS-80, but kind of using those techniques. So that's the set of sounds. There's 50 performances, 53 programs. You can make your own program performances from the programs. Get the zip file from me, from lifestyle.com. Once you get that, you get the download. It's a zip file. Unzip that file, then just go into your editor, go into import, browse for the file, load the collection file, and you'll see it, and it will bring all those in. There's no additional samples. You don't have samples on the multiplier, but there's nothing else needed. The wavetables, everything's included, including the ribbon settings and everything else. And get the free pack as well if you want to try those out. So thanks for watching the video, staying to the end. If you've got any suggestions for sound collections I could do for the multi-poly mod wave or the wave state, please let me know. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.